Hello everyone, and welcome to Collection Reflection. Today we've got a double feature that we will be reflecting on. From Marvel's Epic Hero series, we have Ultron Primeval and Thanos. Let's snap straight into the articulation. Thanos has a ball joint in the head that goes 360, with a very small amount of tilt. He can look up that far, and down that far. His shoulders go out about 90, but surprisingly they can go a full 360 because this piece is soft and pliable. He has a 360 at the elbow, and his arm bends less than 90. He's got nothing in the waist, but just like his shoulder armor, his waist armor is also pliable, which lets him do the splits. He can kick this far forward and this far back. The 360 at the knee, which bends less than 90 just like his elbow. The fact that he can rotate his shoulders all the way around without having to cut up the armor means that I'm pleasantly surprised with this figure. Let's go see if Ultron's articulation is just as surprising. Ultron also has a ball joint at the head, but it's angled so it rotates a little weird. And that also means that there's not really any tilt or up and down with it. This gray plastic is actually just a soft overlay that's on top of a red ball joint, so his actual head is just that red plastic piece. But that also means you can kind of move his mouth a little bit too. Because of the design, his arms can only go out to about 45 degrees, but they can rotate 360. And his elbows will rotate as well. And he does seem to get more range than Thanos. Same with his shoulders, the sculpt limits his splits. And most unfortunately, he can only kick forward this far and backwards this far. It looks like this piece of armor and his thigh are clashing too immediately for it to actually get any range. But he's got the 360 in the knee and a less than 90 bend. Although I do think this sculpt is awesome, I do hate that it gets in the way of his articulation a lot. It's still serviceable, but definitely limited. Let's go see how his accessories hold up. Since Ultron was the big bad of the Mechasaur lineup, I'm counting this whole thing as his accessory. I do like how many different versions of gray there are on this figure. And the touches of red definitely make it pop. Looking at its articulation, it can move its head up and down. And it actually has two separate set of jaws. The one with the teeth is actually hollow in the front. And you can interchange the two. It also has these tiny T-Rex arms that are on ball joints. And these massive legs are actually on mushroom pegs, so they can actually do a full 360, but you might bump into the rest of the T-Rex. This cannon is removable, and it can be placed in the spots on the legs and one side of the tail, as well as the roof of the mouth. But sometimes I like to wedge it in between the two arms for safekeeping. However, the cannon does fire when you click this little button. Just like the gun, the tail and the legs are removable so that you can convert the T-Rex into its other form, armor for Ultron. When fitting Ultron with the T-Rex, you want to slide him into the C-clip here, but make sure that his hip flaps actually go inside of this bigger clip on the outside. Then you're going to lower the tongue part of the jaw over his neck, and then you can adjust the headpiece kind of however you like. Next, you're just going to connect that peg into that slot and use that C-clip to hold his ankle. The articulation in the knee is so minimal, I wish they found another way to engineer this to where you could actually move the knee properly. One of my least favorite parts of the T-Rex is how heavy the feet are. It makes it basically impossible for him to hold a pose, but at least it keeps him sturdy on the table. Finally, you're going to split the tail down the middle and attach them to his arms like they're blades. There are these little pegs on the tail and the spots on his arms where you're just going to plug them in. And here's Ultron with his T-Rex armor. The instructions want you to put the gun into the tail, but there's not enough clearance for it to actually hold onto it in a straight way, so it's going to be angled the whole time. Instead of that, I'd rather port the gun into the T-Rex's mouth. That way it just kind of looks like he's shooting it right out of his face. When it's all said and done, he does look pretty cool, but it has a ton of clearance issues, and like I said, those T-Rex feet are too heavy for it to do anything else than stand there. Let's check out Thanos' accessories. And of course, he came with the Infinity Gauntlet. Originally, I thought it was just going to be a cheap piece of plastic that would snap over the top of his hand, but it's actually a full piece, and it's made of the same soft material that his armor is. And all you have to do is just slide his fist right in, and it fits nice and snug. My one complaint about it is that it is pretty large, and it looks a little ridiculous. With it being a softer material, I think they could have shrunk it down just a little bit, and it would have still been pliable enough to fit over his hand. But I really like the paint that they chose for each stone, and it all looks like it's applied pretty cleanly. These are some top-notch villains. Well, let's go see how they would compare to some other figures. Starting off our comparisons with a couple of 6-inch scale figures, we have Marvel Legends Iron Man, and we have Mech Strikes Thanos. And I'm very happy that I did not have to make the same kind of adjustments to this Thanos that I did for this one, so that he could actually raise his arms. I also want to point out how much nicer the colors are on the 4-inch scale figure. Although I do think the shading on his face is a little too dark because it does kind of hide some of the details, but overall it's a much nicer looking figure. I do think the proportions are interesting though, because they made this Thanos very skinny from the side, but they're equally as wide. For the 5-inch scale, we have Dragon Ball Evolve's Broly and Best Actions Itachi. Looking at the 4-inch line, we've got a couple of Marvel Epic Hero Series figures. We have the Hulk and Cyclops. And I do want to point out how the difference in colors between these two, even though their color schemes are kind of similar, I do like how more metallic and armory Thanos looks. And as far as height goes, Hulk is still the tallest, which I actually enjoy, but they all seem to be pretty much in scale with each other. Maybe these figures could be a little bit taller, but then they'd be pushing into the 5-inch mark. And just so you could see how they could compare to the 4-inch DC Spin Master line, we've got Superman and the recently reviewed Black Adam. And here's a quick shot of the other heroes from the Mechasaur lineup. We've got Iron Man, Black Panther, and Sam Wilson, Captain America. Speaking of which, here are Captain America and Black Panther's Mechasaurs. And here's the only other actual dinosaur in this line, the Iron Man Mechasaur, in their suit mode. Whether you're a mad titan or just the angriest AI, nothing really stands a chance against Pumpkin Rapper's head.
An intriguing proposition, Titan. And yet, I could kill you now and claim the power of these stones as mine.
You have no soul, machine. The true power of the stones will remain forever beyond your reach.
When thinking of ways that I could try to enhance these figures, my first thought was I was going to have to chop up Thanos' armor so that he could have some proper articulation. Thankfully, they used the right type of plastic to where it's malleable enough that we don't have to do that. As far as Ultron, I was thinking about taking an X-Acto knife and shaving away some of his armor so that I could increase his articulation as well. But I like his design too much to actually risk messing that up. Other than Ultron's clearance issues and those heavy T-Rex feet, I'd say he's a pretty good figure. As far as Thanos goes, there's really nothing that I can do to improve this guy, other than maybe give him a waist swivel, but even then, his flat design would make it look a little strange. So that brings us to the question: should you collect these figures, or reflect them? Ultron had a price point of almost $35. I think that's way too high. So if we're going based off retail, you should reflect that figure. I was lucky enough to find him on sale for about $20. At that point, you're paying $10 for the figure and about $10 for the accessories. In my opinion, that's not too bad of a deal, so I'd say collect it at that point. When it comes to Thanos, he's priced at about $13 by himself. He is more expensive than the other figures, but I think the paint the plastic, and the accessory that they gave him are all really, really well done. So I think you should definitely collect that figure. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and if you made it this far into the video, I'd really like to hear your opinion. Do you think I should keep up with these 2-figure reviews, or should I go back to just reviewing one figure at a time? I'm often feeling like I'm pretty late to the game, so there's a lot of times where I won't review a figure if I've already seen that 5 or 10 people have already posted a review about it. But is that just ridiculous? Should I just post one anyways? Or would that be me just flooding the market? But either way, I hope you have a nice chuckle, and please, try to be kind to somebody, because it could really change their life. I'll talk to you next time.